Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, our guest Alan Lowenthal, member of the United States Congress. And sir, I thank you so much for joining us. You were elected to Congress in a district that was not drawn by politicians. Right. That district was drawn by an independent commission.
Right.
Give us a little background on how that happened.
Well, for many, many years, people have been talking, there's been good government types have been talking about doing an independent redistricting commission. But what happened was, the districts are drawn every 10 years after the census. In 2001, the last time previous to this latest census, California was redrawn. I was an assembly member. They drew out what was Long Beach area. They created, instead of one seat, which had been held by Congressman Horn, they made it into 3 or 4 seats. I was so upset, I joined with a number of bipartisan group in the state legislature to form the Bipartisan Caucus, and I introduced in 2002 my first attempt to do an independent redistricting commission. I never even got a second.
Never.
Not even a second. Nobody wanted to do it. Both parties opposed it. Everyone opposed it.
But ultimately,
it came. I worked it through I kept coming back, educating people. I had strong bipartisan support. We got it through by a 2/3 vote out of the California State Senate, but it never was taken up in the California Assembly. And then the governor and a group of Californians who wanted to move it forward took it and even made it stronger and put it on the ballot, and it passed, and California has an independent redistricting.
And what's interesting is it passed in 2 parts at 2 different times, because
Yes.
the initial proposition only drew lines for state offices.
Right.
Then the same bill came back, or the same initiative came back for the federal Congress.
Right.
And it passed.
That's right, with the opposition of both parties.
Right. And so now what you're looking to do is to bring this solution whereby congressional lines would be drawn not by politicians but by an independent commission to the other 49 states.
Yeah, let the people draw the lines. Let's make sure we set up independent commissions that follow openness and transparency and a public process, draw lines based upon kind of set guidelines, and not be done late at night to meet the prevailing views of the political, to have districts that reflect communities of interest rather than self-interest of incumbents. And that's really what happens.
And under California's law, which you're looking to take to the nation, the residents of the incumbents cannot be considered.
Right.
The residents of the candidates can't be considered.
Right.
The political party cannot be considered. Right. Now, it's interesting, a lot of the opponents of this initiative, when it was going to be applied to the Congress, they were concerned about seniority.
Right.
And that if all of a sudden you couldn't protect your incumbents through line drawing, it would impact the seniority of California's members. What have you seen?
Well, I have seen that the real problem that we have in the Congress is that people have lost trust and faith in their government. They do not believe the social institutions that have guided this nation can really deal with the problems of today. And in major part, it's because the politicians or the elected officials are not listening to them. That's really what should drive the process.
And as I understand it, the reason why those are not listening, those members are not paying attention, at least pundits believe, that they have been drawn into districts that are so safe.
That's right.
And so monolithic on
right.
one side or the
That's
other.
right.
That they needn't listen because they're going to win their next re-election.
That's right. That's exactly what happens.
And so your dream is that by having an independent commission draw the lines, we will be able to see districts where they'll be more moderated?
Well, some of them will be, obviously by, housing patterns
Right.
and patterns. Not every district will be, but at least they will not be drawn to particularly benefit one party or the other party. This will be a district that, in a commission that really reflects the overall makeup of our communities, especially since the fastest growing group, but not only in California, but throughout the nation, are the decline to states or the independents. They have no say now in what's taking place, but they are really the swing votes. They are the ones that in presidential elections that everyone plays for. If they were listened to in the states, if districts really tried to reflect the overall demographic makeup of the state and not just who's ever the party that's in power, I think that you would find politicians, elected officials, having to go back and really talk to their constituents.
Do you feel as if this bill, your first bill as a member of the U.S. Congress, can gain traction?
Yes, I do. But if you mean by gain traction that it will become part of the debate in the Congress in terms of what are we going to do to make Congress a more relevant and an institution that really is responsive to the needs of the nation. Right now, it's not. But I don't think there's going to be an immediate turnaround. I don't think, this is all about power. Who has power? And really what this says is that to gain kind of truer representation in our Congress, those who have been drawing the districts have to give up power to the people. People do not give up power easily. There will be tremendous opposition to this bill. But ultimately, I think it's, if we can continue this debate, it's good for the nation and it's good for the Congress, and ultimately it will prevail. We will have independent commissions because those states that already have adopted either models like this or modifications do not have the kinds of problems that other states have.
I want to shift gears and speak with you about a trip you recently took.
Yes.
You traveled to Israel.
Yes.
It was a trip with over 30 members of Congress.
Yes.
Democrats and Republicans, or just Dems?
Well, it was two. This one was just Dems, although the following week, the Republicans, this was really for the new members. There were 36 new members of Congress, Democrats that went. Really, it was 34, and one or two older members came along with them. And on the following week, I think there were 23 or 24 new Republican members.
So, what'd you think? Israel, a beautiful country, but tremendous geopolitical tumult in that entire region. What was your sense?
Well, that's true. That's true. I think that there are a number of things. One is that it was an opportunity for us to listen to both sides and for the delegation to really support the peace process between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government.
You did meet with the Palestinian Authority?
We met with the leadership in the Palestinian Authority, and we met with the leadership of the Israeli government on both sides. And both sides really not only welcomed us, but both sides spoke very, very highly of Secretary of State Kerry, that they are only engaging in this peace process because Kerry has already spent, in the short time he's been there as Secretary of State, he's been to Israel and to the West Bank 6 times and has met with the leadership 6 times since he's begun.
But do you believe that Israelis and Palestinians really, truly want to see a 2-state solution passed and really see that to be in the future of that region?
Well, I think that there are 2 issues. I think that Israelis really want to make sure that Israel remains a Jewish state, and I think Israelis really want to make sure that there is their national security is protected by this. I think now the overwhelming number of Israelis now support the concept of a 2-state solution. Even the leadership, no matter who you speak to in Israel, unless you speak to the far right, they all talk about now wanting a 2-state solution. But they are concerned about the identity of Israel and the protection. I think on the Palestinian side, they are very, very much concerned about the settlements and that whatever happens, there will be land swaps, but that this
what
incursion.
about Jerusalem?
That is a third one, and that's a different issue. Jerusalem has to do with there are a couple of issues. Both want to see it as potentially their capital, and whether it becomes an international city, and also the settlements around Jerusalem are not the same kinds of settlements. They're urban sprawl, and so you have not people who want to go into the Palestinian side because they want to make a statement. It's just that they just
Jerusalem
want to
is
live.
growing.
That's right.
His name is Alan Lowenthal, member of the U.S. Congress. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
Who was the first American president to visit the state of Israel? Dwight Eisenhower, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, or Richard Nixon? Richard Nixon was the first American president to travel to modern Israel.
Welcome to Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Don Knabe. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County, which is a county that has been dramatically impacted by what we know as prison realignment, which is the program whereby lower level offenders are not serving their time in state prisons but county jails. As you know, a 3-judge panel recently ruled that the state of California, excuse my French, hell or high water, had to release or had to decrease its prison population by 10,000. The U.S. Supreme Court said, they didn't take the stay. What's your sense, sir, of what's happening?
Well, first of all, I think it has the potential of being out of control. It's always amazing to me that a judicial panel of some sort can sort of dictate prison populations to those of us in local government. Obviously, being the largest county in the state and the nation, it has a dramatic impact on us. But whether, our caseload, we've had almost 16,000 prisoners dumped on us. We're at about 10,000, 11,000 right now. We expect an additional 10,000 maybe to sort of have flatten out over a period of time. But the issue is how we handle those cases. Now, obviously, they're supposed to be non-violent, non-sex,
right.
non-threatening. And the point being is that they're not that way, and there's big, serious mental health issues, serious drug addiction issues that we have to deal with.
But what about the issue, if I may say, sir, of the fact that you have a 3-judge panel demanding that the prison population be decreased by 10,000, even though the prisons have already been decreased by tens of thousands over the last few years since that initial Supreme Court decision? There's really not much the governor can do. He's done everything he could. And what that likely means is some of these prisoners will be diverted, but some will be released early. This is the first time we will truly see an early release. We have not seen early releases in realignment, despite what many people have said. This would be the first true early release.
Well, it'll be the first of a significant nature. We are seeing early releases because there's a roll-down effect that those folks in our system, somebody's getting picked up now that should be in jail. They say, "Lone, send me to jail," because they know if
but in terms of the state prisons.
The state prison, absolutely.
Right.
But it's not so much those inside the walls. The issue is the absconders, those that don't report. Here they are, bad people doing time. They come down, they're supposed to check in with us, right? So we've had over 12,000 absconders, which means we have extra work for the sheriff's department, the probation department, dangerous kinds of situations where families trying to protect them, whatever it may be, and we're having to chase these people down. Incredible costs to the county. Not only us, but since we're a pretty big county and easy to get lost in, this is a great place to come to try to hide.
At the same time, what some of the counties are doing, including Los Angeles, I believe, is using GPS monitoring for those people who are sent to county jail as they are released early, if that's the term we want to use, and yet folks are cutting off their GPS.
Yeah, it's a big issue for us. Obviously, we're going to have to expand our GPS program. We know that we probably need another 300 or 400 probation officers.
Right.
We've filled about 200 of those positions, doing the background checks on the others. But the whole thing with
cutting off the bracelets.
It works. It does. At least we're a point in time if they go.
Right.
The point is it's not as simple as people think. It's a very heavy labor situation that our people have to do.
At the same time, there are 2 or 3 counties that have empty beds in their jails. Los Angeles, Alameda, and probably Kern through a closed facility. One way to help the state save money, instead of shipping these prisoners out of state, is to let them stay in state and go to these county facilities. I spoke with Sheriff Baca recently, Lee Baca. He's not so interested. What's your sense of that situation?
Well, I think if they are, and they don't all have to be public institutions either. There's a way with the private institutionalize some of these folks. And there's also empty state beds that we can use, sort of a contract back.
Right.
But if there's other counties, they're not really receptive to taking a Los Angeles County prisoner.
Right.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, my point being, if they've done something wrong, just because a judge tells you what to do, the governor, you're right, has done what he can do. We have to respond accordingly. And if that means utilizing beds in other counties, privatizing some of those beds, we need to put the people behind the bars, because at the end of the day, it's a public safety issue. It's a quality of life issue. People are concerned. While the crime rates of the bad crimes, the high crimes have gone down, the other crimes, home burglaries, carjackings, those kinds of things are on the rise. And that's the kind of issue that you're going to get when these people come down. They have no way to make a living. So, I mean, there's not only the problem of institutionalization of these folks, we also need to have some programs available if they want to turn their lives around.
Which was part of the goal behind realignment. Whether it's worked, it's hard to say.
It'll be a while before we know whether it works or not.
I want to talk about another program, and that's the Affordable Care Act. As we know it, Obamacare. It is around the corner. I mean, there is no doubt that Obamacare is coming down the pike. Los Angeles County, largest county in the lower 48 states, 10 million individuals, several hundreds of thousands are uninsured. Is our county ready for the Affordable Care Act?
As I tell everyone, whether you're for the act or against it, we have to be prepared. Right. And we have been working towards that date. I don't think people realize that come January 1st, the dramatic impact that it could have on their relationship with their own doctor, whether they're insured today or not. From the county's perspective, we have the second largest healthcare system in America, 2.5 million uninsured, about 900,000 of those are kids. At the end of the day, even after all the implementations of the program, it's going to be much more expensive for people to buy. We're still going to have 1 million uninsured.
But there is good news, I would argue, and I would think, in that Governor Brown has chosen to take the Medicaid expansion, and that will take several off the uninsured rolls. Is that correct?
That's correct. But even with all those programs in place, my point being, there's still going to be over 1 million uninsured.
Right.
So that's the bad news. The good news is, for us, we now have to be a competitor. And so we have a cultural change that we're going to have to deal with, and that's what we're trying to mobilize. We're moving to the electronic healthcare records system, all the kinds of things that we have to be, because when these people have to start making a decision, check a box, I want to go here, I want to go there, we can't be left with no boxes. So we have to try to keep our customers.
A good number of the individuals that are uninsured in Los Angeles County are undocumented. So while we have the Affordable Care Act marching through, we have immigration reform on a slow march, I guess you could say.
Very slow.
How does that slow march impact the fast march of the Affordable Care Act?
I call it the perfect storm. And the perfect storm is the Affordable Care Act takes place January 1st, 2014. On top of that, there's a big movement in Congress to get something done in immigration reform. The plan that's back there now before the Senate and Congress and they're dealing with is a 10 to 15 year plan.
Right.
And so here in Los Angeles County with over 2 million undocumented, that's a huge hit for us. There's no reimbursement for any of that. So on top of the other uninsured piece, we have this piece on a 10 to 15 year march that as of right now, we're going to have to pick up the cost for. So the hit to all of us in these counties in our healthcare system is dramatic.
I want to shift gears and talk about a show that airs on Charter Channel 101. It will also air on the California channel. It's a show called Dialed In with Don Knabe. I'm looking at the host. I've never been invited to be a guest on the show. But that's okay, because
you're right around the corner.
You're right around the corner, because I think that you have a few more important guests coming up. All I can say is I'm not worthy, because you lined up 3 guests that, in my estimation, will be a historic interview. It'll be an interview that will be watched in 100 years.
Well, it's one of those
Who
things.
are those 3?
Those 3 are 3 former governors,
Right.
Governor George Duke Majan, Governor Pete Wilson, and Governor Gray Davis. And I can't tell you how excited I am that it's all come together. Because I think not only is it an opportunity to look back to their time in office, but I think to look to the future as to what they expect, either not only in California, but in America. And to have them all on the same venue, the same
Literally,
stage.
same moment.
Not in a forum panel kinds of things, but to share their thoughts. It's going to be a fun day and a great opportunity for, I think, everyone to sort of see. I mean, you just have these folks talking.
I cannot wait to see it. Congratulations. His name is Don Knabe. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County. I'm Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition.
Who is the longest-serving governor in California history? John Bigler, Pat Brown, Hiram Johnson, or Earl Warren? Earl Warren acted as California's governor for over 10 years, the longest time any individual served in that office.
It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Welcome back. Our guest is Gerrie Schipske. She is a member of the City Council in Long Beach, also a candidate for mayor of that great city. And congratulations is in order.
Oh, thank you.
In July, you were invited to the White House. You were one of only 6 elected officials that were named Champion of Change for Open Government.
Absolutely. It was a personal honor, but it was an honor for the city because we were the only California city represented in that mix, and it was just great. It was a surprise to me. It came very quickly, and they said,
"Oh, well, that's an understatement, Ms. Schipske." How quickly did it come?
It came like on a Wednesday, and I had to be there on a Tuesday, and it was just
And you
unbelievable.
have no idea how they found out about your work.
I don't. I know that California Forward, which is a nonprofit organization that's pushed transparency and participation in government, had put in their report for California my work on open government and Open Long Beach. And I think maybe that's where they saw it, but when they did their website, they also added things like I published my calendar, was the first one online. I have a blog, I publish documents, I take constituents behind the scenes and show them how to
And
operate.
let's talk about that, because for our viewers who have not seen our prior discussions, I'm not surprised, candidly. I mean, we have been speaking about your efforts to open government ever since I've known you for years. And so when you told this to me, of course, it makes absolute sense, because that's your thing. That's your shtick, if I may use that word.
But you never know that somebody else is going to pay attention to that.
So
you
let's
know?
talk about some of the things you've done. You kind of went through them quickly, but in a lot of ways, if I may say, they are sea changes. I mean, city documents publicly on websites. Sounds easy, quite a revolution. Am I right?
Absolutely, and they're not confidential documents.
Right,
They're
of
the
course.
documents that we as policymakers receive that the voters obviously sometimes don't get to see, so they don't know what's behind the decision making. So my thought has always been, let them see what I see, so that if we're going to ask them to participate and get engaged, they at least have the same background as I have.
You flew through this, but you publish your own calendar.
I do. I let people know who I've met with. Actually, I would like the city to go further than that. They've done this in San Jose, that the mayor, the chief of staff, all the chief department heads, all the chief council aides and the council members, their calendar's online. So you know who is being talked with when you don't get the opportunity to come down to City Hall. And I think people are entitled to see that.
At the same time, I mean, you have your own deliberative process. Couldn't one argue that you should be able to speak with people without every single micro being analyzed?
If I were a private citizen, absolutely, but I'm not. I'm an elected official, and you pay my salary, and you need to know what you're paying the salary for. You need to know how I'm spending my time, because it also gives an insight as to, oh, that's why you said that at council, because you just met with so-and-so. You didn't disclose this in any way, but with a calendar, people get to track where you've been.
But what's interesting, too, is that that position seems to feel right if you're a full-time elected official, for better or for worse.
This is a full-time job.
Well, but that's the point. I mean,
It is.
It is a full-time job, but without full-time pay. And not only are you an elected official for Long Beach, but you're a college professor, you're an attorney, you're a nurse. I'm not sure if you're working in all those fields. I know college professor.
No, I'm on the medical board.
Medical
as well.
board.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm pushing you a little bit, but since you do wear so many hats, is that calendar completely comprehensive?
No, I don't put personal items on there or anything not related to city business. And that's all I think a calendar should include.
So if you're teaching?
Not my doctor's appointment. Right. My calendar, what it says when I'm teaching is unavailable. It doesn't say that, but, where I am. But the other things, when I do meet with someone and it's directly related to city business, you need to know that, because that's going to impact what I do when I vote.
And I think it's fair to say you've rustled some feathers on this one.
I have, because there's controversy. There's people who do not feel it's appropriate. Some people raise the issue of security. Oh, well, then everybody will know. Well, guess what? You know what? They know where we are every Tuesday. If someone wanted to do a dastardly deed, they know where we are. And I think that just begs the question, because there's press releases that go out. People know, if you piece it together, where you are.
You also mentioned that you want to help the citizenry learn more about city government.
Right.
Lots of ways to do that. I'd like to go on one of the tours you've mentioned. Tell me about the tour you took recently.
We just did the lifeguards, and it was a surprise to the people who went to find out that they're the dive team. They just aren't the pretty bodies, that sit along the beach.
Right.
They also do the swiftwater rescue in the flood control areas. They're the dive team. They're a very sophisticated unit of the fire department. That's the other thing people didn't get. We've done that. The Emergency Communications Center. We went to the health department.
Ports?
We've gone to the port.
Which
We've
is
gone to the oil
unbelievable.
island.
Right.
If you've ever been to oil islands,
haven't.
it's fascinating. We are taking people in so that we went to the fire training center, so they got to see what firefighters and paramedics go through and what happens when you call 911, because often people say, why did you send that equipment, those people? They got to explain why. And it made sense to people. They went, I didn't know that. No one's ever told me that.
So you went to Washington.
Yeah.
There were elected officials, honorees from New York City, from Chicago, a tribal chief
yes.
from South Dakota,
Right.
a woman. You mentioned that, so I mentioned that. How did it feel?
It was amazing, but what was very interesting is that we instantaneously, we met kind of in a green room separate before we went on and did this national panel, which by the way is on the White House, website.
We'll put that online for sure.
And under Champions of Change for the White House.
Yeah.
We just instantaneously hit it off. And what was funny, when we were doing the panel, we were able to share what we did. And when someone said, gee, this is what we did, and I said, well, that's, we know about that, and that's what we've used. And so it was really just a good exchange of information, and it was just awesome.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. I want to talk to you about the future. You are a declared candidate for the mayor of Long Beach.
I am.
The race has gotten a little busier.
Yeah.
The incumbent mayor has chosen not to run for re-election. And so we have two of your colleagues on the city council declared. A member of the college trustees has declared. A well-heeled individual has declared. There may be other candidates that will declare. Talk to me about running in what is now a much more crowded field.
Well, it's always assumed that when you have an open seat that you're going to have more people running. And I said from the get-go I was never running against either Bob Foster or anyone. I'm running for the office of mayor because I'm termed out. Interesting enough, he put his poll out before he announced he wasn't running, and it showed that I was by far the front runner of any of the declared candidates at that point. So that sends a strong signal to a lot of people that my name is recognized because of the work I've done in the 5th District. It's going to be a competitive race.
And what's interesting is the two city council candidates also running, Robert Garcia, Suja Lowenthal. My impression is you three are kind of friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like there's not this animosity that's seething, and you're trying to take each other out and everything. I mean, similar political philosophies, similar constituencies, and so.
Well, similar constituencies. I would say the two of them, different constituencies from the east side of Long Beach,
yes,
and I think that's where this race is going to come down to. I think the east side of Long Beach, because it does turn out in higher numbers, really will have a higher impact. That's not to exclude the importance of any other place in the city, but that's going to be the big difference. The other difference is experience, and I think I have an edge over that. So it's going to be an interesting race. I hope what this does is it allows us to discuss the issues that are facing the entire city, so that when people get out of the election mode, they've learned something as well. It's not just this is a campaign and you vote for so-and-so. This is what you learned about the city of Long Beach.
Since you've been running for a little while, I mean,
since about March.
Yeah, March. You've spoken with the residents of Long Beach. What are they saying to you? What are they hoping for? What are they scared of? What are they dreaming for?
They want their sidewalks fixed.
I
Quite
hear you,
honestly, it gets down to the basics of they want their sidewalks, the infrastructure repaired. They also want to know that their neighborhoods are safe, that we have adequate police, and that we have a good response with fire. And then they get into the budget issues, and then they start talking about that the city needs to be fiscally prudent with their money. It's their money. And I'm getting some feedback about our budget process, that it's not open. It's not transparent.
Really interesting that
just people are tracking it.
Regular
They're tracking
people
it. They
have
are.
a sense.
Well, because they see it, and the city announced it had this great surplus. But once you start digging through that and you find, well,
Maybe
this
not.
is because, yeah, and what did it do? You know, where are the services that we cut?
Okay.
So people are
She
engaged.
is Gerrie Schipske. I am Brad Pomerance. Thank you for watching Charter California Edition.